Hello, welcome back to my channel. Wanted to talk about something that's been dwelling on my mind for a really long time, and I don't really know how to address it or make it sound palatable for everybody, so please don't take it the wrong way. I don't mean to insult anyone, I just want to talk about my own personal experiences and how I feel about certain things. I was diagnosed with level 2 autism, and I kind of regret knowing that because every single day since learning that, I feel like I've thought about it and it changes like my whole perception of self and how I thought my life was going to turn out. I know that people with autism can live happy, full, capable lives, but it's still kind of wish I didn't know, even though I know a lot of people in the world wish they didn't know, and people being undiagnosed is actually a really big problem in like the world, especially for people of color or people assigned female at birth. So I know that I have a great privilege in not only being diagnosed, but knowing my diagnosis. But even so, it feels like my life is forever changed because before I had hope that all of the issues I was going through was something else that could be like fixed. That's not the best wording, but I can't think of a better way of putting it. Because in my mind, like, being anxious is just a social phobia. A lot of people have social anxiety, and that's something you can overcome. But then learning that my anxiety really stems from not knowing how to have conversations, not necessarily being afraid of how people will. Well, I am afraid of how people will perceive it, but it's also, but a big part of that is because I don't know how to have conversations. I don't know how to communicate with people in a reliable way. Like, if you ever had a conversation with me, you may not notice, especially if it's brief, but really the whole time I'm consciously making every single choice from facial expression to word choice to how I move my eyes, my mouth, my hands, everything is very conscious for me and it's very stressful. I say reliable way of communicating because I honestly don't know the best way to communicate. Sometimes it works and I feel like I do the same thing in a different situation and it doesn't work, and it causes a lot of stress because that's not just with communication. It seems like it's with everything. Like, I'll go to the grocery store and sometimes it works out and other times it doesn't, and I don't really know why. Sometimes I can handle going to the grocery store, I get everything I need, check out, and it's fine, and other times it seems so confusing and stressful and like I just don't know what I'm doing, and it's really weird having that spotty profile, as a lot of people call it. I really want to reiterate that I'm only talking about myself and my type of autism. I'm not making any generalizations or statements about autism as a whole or anybody else with autism. So I know people aren't going to relate to me and people can find a problem with how I see it or view it or how I feel about it. But I'm really just talking about myself. And if you're coming to this video for any sort of information or knowledge around autism, this probably isn't the right video for it because I'm just explaining my form of autism and how I feel about it. And it's going to be different for every person. Like they say, if you meet one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. So don't take this as me sharing knowledge about autism or me trying to invalidate the way anyone else may feel about their diagnosis. This is just about my perspective. It's a bittersweet one because there is part of me that's glad I know that it's autism, because I think there's a lot of things where I just felt like a failure, like I was dumb, where like how is everybody else living life and I seem to be struggling with literally every single thing. So knowing that it's a developmental disability and not just me being like pathetic or weird or stupid or something, that does kind of take a load off of me, where like before I felt like I heavily blamed myself for everything that went wrong when it was, this is more out of my control than what I previously understood. But then on the flip side of that, when things are in your control, you can kind of navigate and mitigate certain things. Like I was mentioning with the social anxiety, I thought that was something I could overcome. And I'm sure to an extent it still is something I can overcome, but I won't magically know how to socialize. I've been alive for over 2 decades now, always having to talk and interact with people, and it's never gotten easier. And in some ways, it's gotten harder because I feel like I'm more self aware now, especially knowing that I'm autistic. It makes me even more conscious of how I communicate because before I thought I was communicating like a normal person. I thought everybody had the same thoughts, emotions, and feelings that I was having in social situations. So learning that they're not is really scary, and it makes me very self conscious about how I come across because I never thought that I was blunt. I never thought that my facial expressions were wrong or didn't match the situation. I never thought that my voice was too, well, I did think my voice was too deadpan, but that took kind of a lot of time. I thought I talked normally and then people will say things. So then I learned, like, okay, I don't talk as expressive as I think I do. And then, like, just adding that all together and realizing a lot of people don't relate to my experience if they're not also neurodivergent. And I'm sure non neurodivergent people can also relate, but still, there's still a good chance that people I talk to won't necessarily understand what I'm going through during a conversation. So it just makes me feel even more hyper aware. Like, am I being rude and I can't notice it because I'm bad at social situations due to having autism? Or am I communicating exactly how I think I am? Or am I being as polite as I need to be? Because sometimes I feel like I say a neutral statement and then people get offended and I have to backtrack and rethink it. And honestly, I really don't know what to do. Like, I have no solution for that besides just being in the moment and hoping people are honest and open with me. I'll constantly tell my family, like, I literally cannot tell. So you have to let me know if I said something too blunt or if a joke came off wrong or whatever it is, because I can't tell when I offend people a lot of the time. Even with like facial expressions, I can tell like obvious facial expressions if you're like frowning deeply, crying, or like really looking angry. I can tell, but I can't tell subtle facial expressions. Sometimes I can tell there's a shift, like your face went from one expression to a different expression, but I can't tell what that shift means. I don't know if you're bored, if you're angry, if you're upset. So I really need that like spelt out to me, and it's really difficult when so much of socializing is these like nonverbal social cues, and then knowing I have autism means that's literally just something your brain wasn't wired to pick up on. And I'm sure there's ways to learn, and I think everything with socializing, I have learned that over time. Like I said, like, you're born with autism. It's not like I just caught it once I figured out I was autistic. I always had it. So I've been learning ways around it without even knowing. But it's still so conscious for me. Like, even though I've learned certain social skills, it's a conscious script in my mind. It never becomes something I naturally do. So even if I know, like, okay, I need to be expressive and like smile when people say something happy, or like look more sad when people are talking about something sad, it's still a conscious thought in my mind. And sometimes I forget, and people could be telling me bad news and I'm still smiling. And then I have to remind myself, wait, when people say bad news, you can't smile. It makes it seem like you're happy that they're sad. And that took surprisingly long time for me to learn because people always told me I needed to smile more. So no matter what the conversation was about, I would always just like smile and nod. And then, like, looking back, I'm so embarrassed because people will tell me like tragic things, like people in their family dying or something, or getting diagnosed with something bad like cancer, and I'm still smiling because I thought that was just how you were supposed to have conversations, because everyone said you need to smile more. And I didn't realize, like, no, you need to change your facial expressions for the situation. And that's still hard for me because it just doesn't come naturally. I just want to have like a plain deadpan face like this, but I know that comes off as like I'm bored or I'm being rude or I'm not really listening. So it's really hard to balance that and always be conscious of it, because sometimes I literally forget and can come across wrong to other people. So even though I'm learning these skills, it's always a conscious choice in my mind, and that becomes really stressful. So I know I could learn these subtle shifts in facial expression, but it's just another stressful part of communication, and it's already hard to like listen to what people are saying think of something else to say, monitor my facial expressions, monitor my tone, monitor their facial expressions and their tone. So it's really frustrating, I guess is the word. I like the word frustrating because I think it encompasses not necessarily anger, but more so the issue of not being able to change your circumstances no matter how much you want to or how willing you are for that change. It's a really bittersweet sort of situation. I say I regret it because I'm just so mindful of it now, and I feel like I almost can't be myself, and I keep telling myself, we were always autistic, so everything you've been doing up to this point has been while being autistic. You haven't changed who you are as a person. So I'm trying to get that out of my mind, but it's still so conscious, and it makes me feel like sorry, my camera seems weird. It makes me feel like everything I do is because of autism, and the more I study it, the more it does seem that, like, they'll say people with autism have bad interoception, I think is what it's called, and that's where it's like spatial awareness, where you're bumping into walls and stuff. And I thought that was just me. Like, some people are just more clumsy than other people. You may bump into a wall or two, and then it's like, well, that could possibly be because of autism as well. Like, everything about me may be because of autism. In a way, that makes sense. It's a developmental disorder. It's how your brain works, and that's how it applies to literally everybody on Earth, whether you're neurodivergent or not. The way your brain is structured is how it works, and therefore it will be shown in the way you behave and think. For some reason, it still just feels weird to me, and I kind of wish I wasn't so hyper aware of myself all the time, especially through the lens of autism. I miss kind of it just being who I was instead of like a diagnosis, which I know partially is, or maybe fully is, something I just have to deal with and change my mindset around. Is nothing like anyone is putting on me. I'm putting it on myself, but it's still hard to move through and navigate now. And like I mentioned before, thinking I could overcome some of these issues is really disheartening. And I've talked to other autistic people who felt the same way, where one, you're kind of grieving the life you thought you had. Like, I thought once I worked through all of these other mental health issues, I would be able to live the life I always imagined. And now looking at it, it's like, maybe just being honest with myself, I won't be able to live that life. And I know that sounds really pessimistic, but I'm trying to change my perception of that by being honest, because I think I've always told myself, no matter what, like even with learning about being autistic, it's like, well, you can still work through certain things. You don't have to be anxious all the time. You don't have to be struggling with certain thoughts. That's a self-perception issue, and you can still work through that. I think in a way to handle the grieving of the life I thought I would live, I need to be honest and understand that certain things will always just be too stressful because I am autistic, and these things will always be difficult. Even if you can like overcome it to an extent, it's still going to be hard and stressful on me. Like, I always thought I would have some like big group of friends, and we would go traveling and go out and do all this stuff that like you see like people in their 20s on TV doing, and I thought that was the sort of life I would live eventually. And like once I sort out my mental health, then all of that stuff will be easier. But it's like with autism, you're going to have sensory issues. Not everybody with autism has sensory issues, but for me personally, I scored level 2 in both of those social communication and interaction criteria, as well as like the restrictive and repetitive behaviors criteria. So that makes it a little different for me than how maybe some people would experience autism, because like it depends on how you are, like how your brain just happened to develop. I guess a little background, because maybe everybody doesn't know what autism is, and I'm probably not the best person to explain it. Even though I have taken some psychology courses, I still don't think I'm a professional who can explain it in the best way, and that's not really even what this video is about. So I can better explain myself, I want to make clear, like, there's two like categories you're scored in when it comes to autism. Like I said, the social side, as well as like the restricted and repetitive behaviors side, and those can have different levels. Like, I think sometimes you may hear people say they're level 1 autistic, or level 2 or level 3, and those levels apply to both areas. So you could be level 1 in social communication, but level 3 in repetitive behaviors or anything in between. So I'm level 2 in both of those. That's why at the beginning of the video I just said level 2. And I think that's why some people will only give you one number. They'll just say they're level 1 or level 2 or level 3 because they scored that in both. And I think sometimes maybe they don't know what level, or like when they got diagnosed, nobody told them what their level was or what their level was for each of those. So then they just kind of have to figure it out themselves. But I was told what level I was when I got my diagnosis. But I digress. My point is that I'm always going to have sensory issues. I can do things to accommodate those issues. Like I've bought headphones, I bought earplugs, my glasses tint in the sun. So there's things that help with that, but it will never completely go away. And that will change the way I navigate through life if I want to reduce the amount of like stress I feel. The stress is a big part for me, is that life always felt like such a burden, and to reduce that feeling of burden means changing how I thought my life was going to turn out, because I need to understand that some things are just going to be hard. Traveling is just going to be hard. Not to say I can never travel, but it just won't look like how I thought it was going to look before. Making friends is going to be hard. Not to say I can't make friends, it's just not going to look like how I thought it was. I'm just never going to be the type of person who goes to parties and clubs and has a giant group of friends and outgoing and doing all of that stuff you see like on TV and on YouTube. It's just not going to be me, and that's okay. That's why I wanted to put it kind of bluntly for myself, because I think I try to tell myself, oh, this thing could still happen. And it's like being realistic actually makes me like be able to handle it better, because if I keep holding on to like a pipe dream, it just hurts more every time it doesn't work out. Because sometimes I find myself trying to make friends and pretending to be a different person because that's who I wish I was and not who I actually am. And then it's never going to work out. I'm never actually going to make long-lasting good bonds with people if I'm pretending, and then eventually I'm going to burn out, and then the friendship is going to break apart because I was never being myself. So I kind of need to be upfront with myself and others so they know, like, I am a quiet sort of person, and I'm not that good at facial expressions or reading social cues, and I'm going to have sensory issues. But that doesn't mean I'm not like having a good time or enjoying their friendship or wanting to hang out with them. And I think if I'm upfront with that, then people can better decide if they want to be my friend and know what they're signing up for, as well as create better bonds so that the people who do decide to be my friend are the type of people who are open to being friends with someone with this type of autism. Because I don't think everybody is, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. We all have preferences for what type of friends we want, and I want the people I'm friends with to be comfortable with who I am, just like I'm sure they want me to be comfortable with who they are. That we all need to just be open and honest with each other and not try to change myself for who I'm just guessing they would prefer me to be or who I wish I was. And I used to joke to myself how I never knew that everybody else was pretending to be somebody else, and that I fear it's too late for me, and that may not be a bad thing. Now I'm realizing, yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody masks to some extent, but they were never masking as much as I was, unless they're also neurodivergent. And of course, there's people who aren't neurodivergent who mask heavily, but still, still going to look different for me than even the next autistic person. Everybody's different. It actually took me kind of a long time to mask. I did little things, like I mentioned, of focusing on my facial expressions and just learning how to behave out in the world, but there's a lot of things that I did that were weird, and I never knew it was weird. Like, I never knew people looked at me and thought, like, why is she doing that? Like, it took me a very long time to learn that when people talked to me, I was supposed to respond back. Like, especially if they weren't asking me a question directly, I couldn't pick up on when people were trying to start a conversation. So people could say hi to me, and I would just stare at them because I thought they were just getting my attention. I didn't know they were trying to talk to me. So I would just look at them, waiting for them to say something else. And they were waiting for me to greet them back. And now I know like how rude that seems, and I'm better at that. But it took a long time for me to learn all of these skills. I'm still happy that I have been learning the skills, and being able to accommodate myself better. That is a pro of knowing I'm autistic, is that a lot of the things I thought I had to like fix are really things I need to learn how to accommodate, and that will cause less stress because trying to fix sensory issues, like you think, oh, like exposure therapy, I just need to go out and do certain things and get used to the noise or get used to being around people, when actually that was just burning me out faster, when I really need to learn how to accommodate myself in those situations. It really is just bittersweet trying to learn how to navigate this, but I really hate that it's on my mind all of the time. I wish I could find a way to navigate it without constantly like judging myself and thinking that I'm autistic, because I'm still myself. I'm just myself who happens to be autistic at the same time. And certain things are still me because everybody was autistic. Everyone with autism isn't the same. So even if my clumsiness is actually a part of autism, it doesn't mean everybody with autism is clumsy. So it's still me being me. I just kind of wanted to come on here and vent because I see a lot of autism videos. Like I purposely go looking for them now that I know that I'm autistic, because I just want to see other people's experiences, and it kind of gives me hope to see how other people are living and navigating the world, even if it's through struggle. It's like, okay, well, we're struggling together and I'm not the odd man out. But even through some of that research, especially on YouTube, I feel like I see a lot of positive things, which of course is a great thing, but sometimes it makes me feel like I'm failing at being autistic. Like we're all autistic, but somehow these people are living way better lives than me and can just navigate the world so much better. Like I love their channels and videos, but seeing people travel, when that's something like I wish I could do, but it causes so much stress that it really has to be limited or in a very specific way. And they're like travel multiple times every year, and I'm like, how do they do it? And it's not to put anybody down, because it's great that they can do it, and I'm sure someday I can be better at that and accommodating myself. But it's still like in the moment it feels like somehow like I failed at being like an holistic person, and now I'm failing at being an autistic person. No matter how untrue that statement is, that's still like my perception of myself and how I feel. So I wanted to kind of come on here and share some of the downsides, the bittersweet sides, the struggles that I'm facing, just in case somebody else feels the same way and has been too afraid to say anything because they didn't want to feel like they're hating on it or being ableist, or I don't know, making autism look bad, or they maybe also felt like they're not doing autism correctly. And I want to say, like, as good and as much of a privilege and all of the bright sides of being autistic, and knowing that like getting a diagnosis can be, there's still downsides and it can be a struggle and there can be a sort of grief to it, and it's hard to figure out your perception of self going through all of it, and that like you're not alone in feeling this way. Other people have those negative thoughts and emotions too, and that's okay, and that we can work through this together. There's hope for us. I know there is. So it's okay to feel those negative emotions sometimes, as long as you know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, as people say. You know, it won't be bad all the time, 24/7. There's still going to be hard moments, of course. Like I said, you're autistic for a reason. It's a disability for a reason. There's going to be hard moments, but it doesn't mean you're going to have like a hard, unforgiving life. So give yourself that chance to be like upset, maybe even angry, frustrated, whatever those emotions may be, because that's valid too. You don't necessarily have to be happy all the time about it. Even if you're self-diagnosed, you can go through the same sort of emotions, and you're allowed to have negative emotions about that as well. Kind of want it to be that voice out there sharing my story, because I don't always see that side of autism and how people talk about it, because it is a struggle and it's really hard sometimes. And I know like a lot of times I just wish I wasn't autistic and that I could be like normal and just fit in with people. I don't necessarily hate who I am. I hate how people perceive me and how people treat me. And in some ways it's like, does it really matter how I feel? Because perception goes a long way. Like it matters how I feel maybe in general, but not socially, because if I want to make friends, people are going to perceive me, but I have to have hope that who I am as a person, people can still be my friend. Or like getting a job, like I did get a job, so that gives me hope, because sometimes I feel like I'm just too like weird and everybody can see it because I'm not like acting how I'm supposed to. So during the job interview phase, people are going to be like, put off by me. Worked out, so it shows that even if you're afraid, even if you're not sure how to communicate, you have that unreliable communication like I do, there's still hope. You can still find friends and jobs and navigate the world. But it's a real fear, and I think it's worth mentioning and validating for people who may be going through it and only hear the positives, or people keep telling them, like, look up, be happy, certain platitudes that can kind of feel almost insulting when you're like kind of in this slump and going through it. It can be hard. Like, this isn't even new for me. I've known I was autistic for like 3 years now, and it turns out my mom knew for even longer. So it's been a long time kind of me knowing, but it doesn't necessarily made it easier or made these negative feelings go away. So I want to make sure people know, like, it's okay to feel that, and it's okay if it takes a long time to understand and learn how to navigate it, because it may be forever. I don't even know, because I'm not through it yet. I just wanted to kind of vent and share my side of things and why I sort of almost regret knowing that I'm autistic. Like I said, it's bittersweet. I'm happy I know for the things I mentioned, like I can accommodate myself better. I'm not as hard on myself anymore. I understand why I act the way I act. But I'm also sad, I know, because it's constantly on my mind. I feel like it's changed my whole perception of self, and that I'll never live the life I wanted to live, because, like I said, it is a disability. It will influence how you live your life, and you're just not going to live your life the same as somebody who doesn't have a disability. That's just the truth of the matter, and certain things are always going to be hard. And maybe in another video I'll break down my type of autism even more so people can understand what I mean by that. But like I said, I don't really like sharing too much of personal information, but if that would be helpful for somebody, please comment down below and I'll make that video as well. But I hope people feel seen through this video, and I hope people understand what I'm trying to say, that I'm not trying to insult anybody. And if you're happy about your autism diagnosis, you 100% deserve to be. But this is for myself, just to get this off my chest, and also for people who may be feeling negative emotions around it, whether they're diagnosed or think they may be, or are self-diagnosed. I'm hoping you can see yourself in this video and understand and feel validated by it. It's okay to be upset by that. You don't have to be optimistic and happy all of the time. You just can't let it bring you down and, cause you to fall into a depression or anything. Sometimes that happens, but just have hope that things can work out eventually and you'll make it through it, and hopefully we can make it through it together. Thanks for watching this video. I know it was kind of rambly, but I appreciate you taking the time to watch this, especially if you watched it all the way through. Please comment below any of your experiences or anything you would want me to make a video about concerning autism, or just anything in general. And, hopefully we can kind of create a little community in the comments and be there for each other. Thank you for watching. Bye.